Hello and welcome guys to another video, and today we are going to be looking at a track guide for Lime Rock Park in the M2 Cup, and we'll watch the hot lap first and then get straight into the track guide. So starting off with the lap, this is a very short track, Lime Rock Park, so the main thing that we want to be focused on is keeping up our momentum and not overslowing the car, and just being very smooth with our inputs. So let's have a look at the start of the lap. So coming into the first corner, I'm looking for this number 3 board as my braking reference to start braking. Just before that number 3 board, as you can see, I'm getting on the brakes, hitting about a maximum of 80% brake pressure at the start of the braking, and what I want to do is trail the brakes as far into the corner as possible, and we want to treat turn 1 as a double apex. So as you see here, we're trailing the brakes and we're going to hit this apex here, and then once we've hit this apex, as you can see, we're still trailing these brakes. If we've overslowed slightly, which I think I overslowed slightly on this lap, I get on the power a bit and just let the car drift out wide. As you see, just a tiny bit of throttle, and then when I know I've got enough throttle, back on the brakes. Let the car drift out wide, and then as soon as we've got the car lined up to aim for the apex of the second part of the corner, we want to get back on the power. Just modulate the power to make sure we get up to this apex, and then as soon as we know we've hit this apex, we can let the car drift out wide. You can use a bit of this curb to rotate the car. Just be careful, especially on the first laps of the race. On the cold tires, you can spin off of this curb, especially if you clip the grass on the end of it, so just be cautious of that, but in hot laps it's absolutely fine to use. You can use this exit curb. As you see, we get a little bit of oversteer here, which is why I think I lost about a tenth on this sector. So we can use this curb. Then we want to get over to the middle or the right hand side of the track, coming into this left-hander. Very small amount of braking coming into this corner. Unfortunately, there's no real braking marker, so you kind of just have to get a feel for where the braking is. There isn't really anything I use as a braking reference, unfortunately. You just get a feel for the braking. You just want to carry the momentum for this corner. So as you see, I brake about maybe 45%. Try and get as late an apex as possible. Just trail the brakes. Use a little bit of the power to rotate the car, and just try and hug this apex curve. As you see, very late, we're apexing about here. So if we look, it's a very late apex. Get on the power, let it drift out a little bit if you want, but we want to hook it onto the left for this right-hander. So you can let it go out a bit, but then you need to bring it back over to the left. So that's why I get such a late apex for that left-hander, so that I'm on the left-hand side of the track for this corner. Here we want to turn in. This is the turn-in point. It's difficult to see, but as you see, the white line goes almost in a straight line here, and then it's got a wee join here, and it starts going to the right. About there is the turn-in point. Just before that is where you turn in, so that's the best marker I can really use. You don't need to brake for this corner. As you see though, I do lift off the throttle quite a bit. I think on that lap I put in like 10% brake pressure. Depending on the conditions, you sometimes have to brake. Usually you can just lift. So you go right down, don't go fully off the throttle, just go down to like 20% and then get back on. If you go fully off the throttle, you'll unload the car, and then it'll get a bit of a slide there, which you don't want. Now, coming into what I think is the most tricky part of this track, the braking marker, as you see again, this white line, there's a change. So you've got this line, and then there's a sharp turn where it goes to that line. So that is my braking marker. As you see here, this is where I start to brake. I try and brake really early, so I brake up to 80%, get down into second gear, and then I'm already on the throttle as I turn in. So as you see, I'm turning in here, getting on the power, because you want to be on the power when you hit this sausage curb so that the front of the car is raised up. So there is these red sausage curbs. Now, this one, you can clip some of this and you can clip some of this. And depending on how you take the corner, it won't really slow you down. If you hit this red sausage curb over here, that pretty much every time will spin you. So you want to be careful of that one. But this one is fine pretty much every lap. This one you do have to be careful of, but most of the time it's okay to take. So this lap, I take a little bit of that red sausage curb, and then I just avoid that one completely, and avoid that one completely. And then you can straight line this hill and take all this curb. So as you come up here, you want to straight line this bit. So you get it tucked in here, and then you just want to straight line it as much as possible up the hill, just to keep your momentum up. Now, coming into this right-hander, what you want to do is let the car, it's kind of like turn one, you want to treat it as a double apex. So I'm braking here. I don't really know, again, there's not very many braking markers. You could use this where the white line changes. So it's coming straight, and then it's got a kink to it here. You could use that, or you could use the start of the curb on the right just before there, start braking. It's very difficult on this track because there's very little braking markers. So I'm starting to brake there. Now, as you see, I'm not really close to this apex curb. I'm basically aiming to end up about here on the track, because I want to open up this right-hander. So as you see, light turn one, trailing the brakes, and then I want to turn in for this apex as late as possible. So as you see, get on the power. You can really cut this corner, by the way, as well. You can cut this one and you can cut this one. Be cautious though in the race, because if you cut it too much, it's a 1 second slowdown, and at this track it can be very hard to get rid of that 1 second slowdown, so it can cost you in the race. So it's a bit of a risk versus reward that you have to decide. But cut as much of this as you can without invalidating. Get on the power. Here you just need to lift to like 80% sometimes just to get the rotation. Some track conditions you can go full throttle and you should be fine, but sometimes you need to lift to 80, otherwise it'll spin out. Final corner, turn-in point, there's this overhanging tree here, which you can kind of use as a turn-in reference. You want to be turning in just before that. For the final corner, it really depends on track conditions and if you've got any dirty air. I usually lift to about 80% power. You can use a bit of the curb, you don't need to. I like to use a little bit of it just to get it rotated. But as you see on this attempt, I just go to 80% throttle for just a few meters really, and then go back onto full power. Again, you can use all this exit, just be careful not to invalidate the lap obviously. And that is it, guys. That is the track guide complete. We'll be doing the Winton, I think it's Winton next week. We'll be doing the track guide for that as well. So if you guys enjoyed, please like the video. And if you have any suggestions for the next track guide, let me know in the comments down below. But as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time.